Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex. And today I want to talk about character design and highlight a handful of characters that I think were designed very well, both in terms of how they relate to and kind of mirror their comic book counterparts, but also how they fit into this game in a way that feels strong and in a way that feels rewarding when you figure it out, but not necessarily under or overpowered. And I'm doing this primarily because I want to highlight these characters, but I also want to compare them to the latest update. The boycott is still on for Ant-Man and Nova and Blue Marvel, so I have not built those characters up. I cannot give you advice on them or on the new uniforms because I haven't spent any crystals, because we also have a crystal boycott. But it is interesting to see that the power level of these new heroes is grossly over-representative of their power level, maybe perhaps in the comics, or where they should be in this game considering their rarity and their tier being native tier 1 characters. So I'll get to the new characters a little bit later, but first I want to explain to you my opinion of a well-designed, well-developed, well-thought-out character. It's not necessarily the best characters in the game by any means, but you'll start to understand what I'm saying once I give you some examples. So my first example is Captain America. In the comics, Captain America is not the strongest guy, he's not the fastest guy, but he gets the job done through perseverance. He has more willpower and more sustainability than any other character, and he just takes the punishment and he keeps on going. And that's exactly who Steve Rogers is in this game. You know, he has skills like Hold the Line, Shield of Valor, you know, Heroic Fury, and those things stand for the exact meaning of those words. He's the perfect embodiment of a tank character. High HP, immunity, iframes, just so much damage reduction. He doesn't do a lot of damage, but that's not the goal of the character. And so he doesn't feel overpowered, but when you perfectly build your Captain America with the right ISO set, with the right obelisk, when you level up and rank up his uniform, you're going to feel a sense of satisfaction and progress in building him up to that level, and you will see him shine, even in things like World Boss, but especially in game modes like Alliance Conquest. So this is what I'm talking about. Another example of a character like that who fits that mold is Ant-Man. Ant-Man, if you guys aren't familiar, was my very first tier 2. Back when he was first introduced as a tier 2 character, he was extremely powerful because of the massive guaranteed dodge, but the guaranteed dodge fits into his character design because he shrinks down, he's extremely hard to hit, so it's logical. These things make sense with the character, and that's what I mean about it being balanced. It doesn't feel overpowered because his damage is so low, and because it's a 20-second effect with a 30-second cooldown, so there's always some way to be punished for those last 10 seconds, or if they have a lot of ignore dodge. But Ant-Man is a character that you can choose to build more defensively with things like max HP, regular dodge, invincibility, to make him even harder to hit and kill, or like I did, and I have a rank 76 Ant-Man, you can build him offensively to try and make up for his weakness, and I did that, giving him lots of crit rate, lots of crit damage, and he does pretty decently. He's not obviously going to max the DPS charts, but he'll surprise you. I can take down Infinity Thanos with no strikers, with no overpowered leadership, with no buff passing, because I've invested in this character. But these are the types of well-balanced, well-designed, thematically accurate characters that I really love in this game, and that I wish Netmarble would do more often. It's definitely harder to make these characters, absolutely, but it's a more fulfilling experience as a player when you discover them, when you figure out how to develop them, and then when you develop them up to that higher path. I want to list through a couple more here kind of in rapid succession. I do really like the design of Carnage. He's high damage glass cannon. Even at tier 2, he can be easily punished because he only has one skill that protects him indefinitely, Insanity Strike, with the 5 seconds of invincibility, or 6 seconds. That can be debuffed, and then he only has one other iframe. But if you build him to deal damage, he deals it in a hurry. He is a massive DPS burst type of character, so it very much suits Carnage's kind of wild, aggressive, kind of hyper aggro style in the comics, where he just jumps at you. Another character that I think is very well developed is Songbird. You know, not a lot of damage, but they found a way of kind of building that sonic effect into both her auto attack for a very unique way of dealing damage with multiple ways of crowd controlling. And you can use that to great effect in Shadowland, as many people have demonstrated, and you probably know by now. You can chain stun enemies, and it works in Conquest and it works in other game modes, but she never feels overpowered to the point that it's unfair, and you can kind of see a theme building. Another really great piece of design that I think Netmarble could do more of is characters like Mantis. Now, Mantis herself is actually extremely well recognized in this game compared to the comics. If you go and look up what she can do as her comic book counterpart, it's very similar to what she does in this game, but I really especially love her Psychomancy 5th skill. It has a fear effect, and it creates this green ring around her, and the fear effect will actually last longer than 3 seconds if you can keep the enemies inside that fear ring. So you can kind of run around and run with them as they're feared and they run away from you in kind of random patterns. You can keep them feared and crowd controlled for longer, and that's a very interesting concept because it puts Mantis at more of a disadvantage because she has to stay close range to the enemy. She has to stay within melee range, but she gets a better effect of her fear, and she gets more value out of her skills with this kind of area of effect, constant effect that her 5th skill is using or kind of emitting. Destroyer is another great example. You know, he was built as armor to hold energy by Odin, and he's basically a giant energy pylon to threaten characters that deal too much energy damage in a burst to reflect it back and kill them. He's got one very specific role, and if you build him for that role, he does it to perfection, and he can be a viable threat, and he kind of creates more permutations in the meta because of his existence. He doesn't do other things well, but that's okay. A couple more examples I want to give you guys are a little bit more questionable, but besides his 5th skill, because I think Doctor Strange's 5th skill is one of the laziest skills in the game. I really abhor the design of this skill. I think it was in very poor taste, and it was blatantly power creep. But I think the rest of Doctor Strange's skills, the time freeze, and the fact that he's, like Carnage, a glass cannon, is very interesting, and it very much suits Doctor Strange. You know, he's still mortal, he's human, and he can be killed, in quotations, in the comics, and they've reflected that power of, you know, Supreme Sorcerer with a catch very well in this game, aside from his 5th skill. Now, we all know that there are many characters now who can pierce immunity, so he's not as ironclad as we all thought, but it's still nice to use the character, and his, you know, the skill animations are fantastic. And the CC effect is very fitting for the character. The last one I want to touch on is a new one that I don't have the uniform yet for, but it does show some additional foresight on the fact, or on the part of the developers, and it's Inferno. Inferno's uniform, if you guys are not familiar with it, gives him a 9% recovery for 1 second. Now you look at that and it seems really awkward. 9% is not really a nice number. 10% would have been nicer, or 15 or whatever, and it's 1 second, so it seems pretty useless. You know, 9% 1 second, that's really not going to help anyone. And it triggers when he's below 50%, and it's got a 5-second cooldown, which is a long time. But only if you get Inferno to tier 2, you will realize that this uniform synergizes with his tier 2 passive, because it increases all buff effects and their duration by 30%. So by increasing the buff effect by 20%, the heal, and by increasing its duration of 1 second by 30%, you're now getting almost a 20% heal, because it ticks twice. So people have shown me you know, clips and GIFs of Inferno healing for 4,000 or 5,000 twice, which is a total of, you know, 8,000 or 10,000 health. That is a much better number than before, and that's definitely something that the devs, when they designed this uniform, they knew about that. And so it's really cool to see that kind of interesting synergy and interaction between existing effects, Inferno's tier 2 passive, and these new effects brought on to further enhance and complicate and diversify the character with his uniform bonus. Now, I say this partially because, you know, I love these characters, but I also say this because I think that the 3 new characters, Blue Marvel, Nova, and Ant-Man, are examples of really bad character design. And I know we've focused a lot on the boycott and why it's terrible, and why the loot boxes are garbage, and I agree with that. But I'm going to now rank up Nova just to show you guys the extent of how badly these characters, or how poorly these characters were designed. And I can't really speak with much accuracy as to how long Netmarble spent designing these characters, or how many designers spent days or weeks putting into these characters. And I don't mean to disrespect the people that work at Netmarble, but seriously, the level of detail, or the lack of detail in these characters, is stunning. And the amount of time that was spent making sure that their skills were overpowered without really testing for balancing is grossly obvious. And take Nova, for example. Go over to his character gear. Go back to his profile, and you will see very clearly that he's an energy-based character. His energy attack is the stat that shows up here, next to physical defense, energy defense, and HP under his level. So he's an energy-based character. However, when you go to his character gear, his first stat is physical attack. So Netmarble probably took the template for this character from another character and didn't bother to change physical attack to energy attack. Were they overworked because this update included so much content and game mode updates and improvements that they didn't have time to check and recheck this character? No. Did they do any balancing or balance testing for these characters? Probably not. Nova and Anti-Man are probably in the top 10 best characters in the game right now, and we've consistently had characters in each subsequent update for the last few months that are just far and away better than every other character in their class. I mean, Nova, Anti-Man, and Blue Marvel are better Universal characters than most of the other Universal characters in the game, and that's Thor and Loki and most of the Black Order included. They're probably better than Dormammu and Odin and Thanos, for that matter, when it comes to certain game modes. And that is just blatantly it's just blatantly bad and wrong. They're native tier 1 characters. They should not be as strong as native tier 2 characters. And there's essentially two reasons why they're stronger. They were made stronger so that Netmarble could sell more loot boxes, which is a very deviant thing to do. It's bad, and it's deceptive, and it's crooked. Or they were made overpowered because nobody bothered to test them out before they were sent off to the final patch update. I personally want to think that it's the second one, and I think that Nova's gear really reflects the fact that they weren't tested, because any developer for Netmarble, any developer for Marvel Future Fight would catch this in 1 second if they play their own game. If they don't play their own game, we're in trouble. But hopefully they do, and hopefully that was just a misstep that, will be corrected simply with a patch. But it goes a lot deeper than just Nova and Anti-Man and Blue Marvel. Yes, these characters are grossly overpowered. Yes, they should be weaker, considering that they're native tier 1 characters and they can be ranked up using mega tier 2 tickets and stuff like that. But it even extends to native tier 2 characters. Quicksilver is strong in the comics, don't get me wrong, and he can be strong in this game, but skills like his 5th skill, Days of Thunder, are just insanely strong and unnecessarily powerful given the character. I mean, the rest of his skills make sense with his skill set and with his attack patterns, but the 5th skill just doesn't. And it feels kind of like they designed his other skills, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then they were like, well, we want to make sure that Quicksilver is really overpowered. We want to make sure that he's the #1 speed hero to take over Extreme Alliance Battle and other game modes and kind of trump Spider-Man 2099 and Kid Kaiju and Spider-Man and all those other speed heroes. We need to make sure that this guy is the new hero, the new top daddy for speed. And then they designed this skill with large AoE, 100 hits per cast, and a guard break effect thanks to his unstoppable momentum 4-star passive. And it just totally breaks the character. It's made Timeline basically a total crapshoot, and people hate Timeline now because every team has Quicksilver, my own included, and he's just a total nightmare to fight. No matter what, no matter who you use, you can die just because of his 5th skill. And it's things like this that just make me scratch my head and get frustrated, because there wasn't enough testing done by the devs before this, and despite our repeated complaints by the community, they don't seem interested in fixing these things. So I wanted to bring it to the attention not only of you, the players, but also to the attention of Netmarble, hence the title of the video. Hopefully they're watching some of these from time to time, and hopefully in this case, they can fix Nova. Maybe they'll tweak Quicksilver a little bit. It has been a while since he came out, so I don't think anyone's going to feel bad if he gets nerfed. Netmarble hasn't done nerfs now in what, like a year or two. So maybe it's time for some nerfs on heroes like Quicksilver and Jean Grey, and you know, maybe Anti-Man and Nova while you're at it, to bring them down to the level of normal tier 2 native characters. But even if they don't listen, and even if they don't heed my warnings and criticisms, I have you guys. So with that being said, let me know what you think in the comments. Hit me up with some characters that you really like, that you think are very well designed in the light of the ones that I've already singled out. And if you don't think that Nova and Anti-Man are as powerful as I say, if you disagree with me, also let me know. Subscribe if you enjoy the content, and of course, if you like what you see, I hope to see you again tomorrow. Take care.